Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to Coffee Talks with Cody James. With me today, I have a very special guest. I have the one, the only lighting guru, everything that he could be, Mr. Bryant Powell. Can I get a round of applause for Mr. Bryant Powell real quick for me? All right.
Thank you.
Brian, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing fantastic.
You're doing fantastic. I just want to share with y'all, we are out in the Ville. We are out in Belleville, the 618. We got a nice fire. We got a couple drinks with us tonight. Brian, please tell us what you do a little bit.
What do I do?
What do you do, man? Who are you?
Who am I? I'm the one and only. I'm Bryant Powell. There's no other. I do many things. Ultimately, I'm here to teach people about the human experience and show them how they can get through the human experience, no matter how tough things can get, how stressful things can get. It's just really about just living life in the most purest form, realistically.
Ooh.
And that's just what I'm here for, and that's what I strive to do in everything that I do, whether that's in lighting, whether that's in business, whether that's in family, and everything that I do. That is the thought process behind everything I do. It's living the purest form of the human experience.
Okay, now Brian, I see you got a Mastermind and Co hoodie on. Can you flex that a little bit? Okay. Can you tell us what do you do for Mastermind and Co?
Too many things. But primarily event production. I primarily do the production aspect. Any show, release party, music video, whatever production needs he may need. I need you to back up, girl.
Shout out Ivy.
Any of his production needs, that's the bulk of what I do. Sometimes I do some spiritual healing with him as well, do some meditations, things of such nature. That's a bulk of it, really.
Now, Brian, I've known you for a long time. If y'all didn't know, Brian manages my music career. But Brian, you are a lighting guru.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So tell me, when did you get into lighting? And really, what made you get into lighting? What is the why for lighting?
What is the why for lighting? So you kind of asked multiple questions there.
I know. I came prepared.
What got me into lighting, it was a job position that was available, to be transparent. But there was something about it because it was an aspect that you never really think about in a show. So there was something about, let me think. So I started lighting at the Pageant, which is a venue in St. Louis, one of the largest venues, and they're one of the top ranks actually venues too in the world. I want to say they were top 10 in the world and top 20 in the country or something like that at one point. But it was a position that was available. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life in general within the industry, because at this point I've worked at I've done festivals, I've worked at a radio station, promoter, a little bit of an artist. I played drums and bass in a band. So I did a little bit of everything within the industry, and it was more me just trying to figure out a placement that fits best. Not just because I was already kind of learning about the industry overall, but it was because I wanted to find the best, what felt the best for me. Where can I feel the most comfortable? Where can I feel the most relaxed? And lighting just felt that most relaxed to me. I was forced to get out of my fear of heights, because you have to climb a lot of things, and so no matter how wobbly it gets, you gotta you gotta stay up there to.
Which I want to pause you right there. I've seen a lot of Brian's lighting work, and this dude is freaking nuts with the lighting. So lighting guru is a very well-deserved title. But keep on, man.
So it was one of those things that I fell into when you start to really actually notice lighting, and especially gut lighting. I've seen many mediocre shows, and even for great big tours and things of such nature, artists that are really great and well known, even some of their they may have a lot of shit, they may have a lot of fixtures and all of this stuff, but their show within itself is just so basic. And like when I actually noticed the difference between like mediocre shows and shows that really like tells the story, I was like, damn, that's what I want to be a part of. Because you're putting on a show just as much as that artist is putting on a show, but not just that. And as I put it, you're the hype man of that artist. And so your job is to enhance the experience for the artist and for the people that are watching it as well. So that's like my core reason. And even when I started doing corporate lighting, it was the same thing. You know, your job is to come in and, you know, let's say it was Wells Fargo or something like that. Like, your job is to make sure that when these people are flying in for a meeting, that to make it a different experience versus being in a boardroom or being over Zoom or something like that.
Right.
Like, your job is to create a whole different experience so that these people are hopefully more engaged in the info that they're receiving. So overall, it just became a thing that I realized that like your job is just to create. My job is to create an experience for people to come and not just enjoy, but hopefully it lifts them. And any experience that I put myself in, like I said before, is to help people find their purest form of the human experience. And I do that a lot through lighting, based on how I design my lighting. Not necessarily having conversations or anything like that, but just on how the energy can shift when you walk into a room with just excellent lighting, realistically. And that goes on all forms at this point now. That could be landscaping, that can be music, that can street lights.
Now, what would you say? I mean, you've been doing this for how long now?
4 years now.
So you're pretty
about
well
5
experienced.
years.
Yeah.
I've been in the industry for 6-7 years altogether. 8 years now. Damn.
All right, veteran. So, what would you say is your favorite show you've done?
That I done, like, as far as lighting?
Your lighting, yeah.
That I lit. I don't know if I have a favorite show. I have favorite moments, but I can't necessarily pinpoint those moments. But I can't say I had, like, a show that, like, the entire
Or not
show.
even maybe just show, maybe just event in general. Do you have a favorite one?
Event? Yes. Purina is one of the sponsors for the St. Louis soccer team. And when they made that announcement for their sponsors, they did, like, they had like these different pets come out, like dogs and cats and stuff like that come out. And so my job was to do like a soccer team, football entrance type lighting for them as they're like running through like this tunnel and everything like that.
Dope.
That was my favorite. It was one of the smallest, not necessarily like the most pictures or like the most intuitive, but it was the funnest because it was just seeing all like the animals interact and things of such nature. And then to see the finished product made me like that much like heartwarming and helpful.
Oh yeah, shit. Proud.
So yeah, that I would say has been my favorite thus far. I've had some great like locations and great shows, but as far as like that'll always like be ingrained in my head, that one for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's dope, man. Now I know we're gonna switch topics here a little bit. We're gonna get a little more in depth, a little more reflective. And I know this is what I was excited for, and I know you said ooh, but now, I heard you say that you are a soul healer. Was that the verbiage you used? Healer. Spiritual healer for Mo Mastermind. And I know you do a lot for me as well, as far as venting, and I know we have some real deep conversations. But can you deep dive a little bit into what exactly you do as a spiritual healer?
Spiritual healer, I kind of force people to look within. Mm-hmm. There's always a core to something. And I truly believe that there always is, no matter how much you want to believe it or not. And you've even stated yourself, like, sometimes you have to sit around and kind of figure out what the why is on something.
Exactly.
And so that same thing works internally. So my goal is to try to bring that out of you. Mm-hmm. Bring whatever that deep-rooted thing that keeps you materialistic, that keeps you from living a pure form of like that human experience, because I'm a true believer in living a stress-free life, and that's all internal. It really is. There are external things that are stressful, and I'm very aware of that. I mean, I hope everyone is, But how you perceive that is what changes whether or not you're going to live stressful due to that. Because there's so much shit that's going on in the world. I can either just be depressed, which I've done that before,
right?
Or there's another aspect of it where you can go, well, this is all pointless, and you can just give up at the same time and kind of go stir crazy because I should fix that, I should fix this, yada yada. And you have to understand that like all of that is just part of the human experience. You have to experience these different things in order to truly live and know what the human experience. So if everything's all goody gumdrops all the time, like there's nothing to really.
All right, so if there's no bad in your life, there's no yin to your yang. You're not truly living. I don't think. You got to definitely go through the bad times to appreciate the good, and vice versa as well.
And you explain that perfectly well. If like you're not living in a yin yang, in that yin yang, because if anybody have seen the yin yang, like they know there's a little bit of black and a little and white and a little bit of white and a little bit of black. And the way that I best explain that as an example, you take a person that's doing good things but for evil reasons. Does that make that person a good person? And then you take a bad person you take a person that's doing bad things for good reason. Does that make that person a good person or a bad person? So
I think as long as like your intentions are pure to a certain extent, but what side are you on that they're pure?
Exactly.
Are they purely good or are they purely bad? I feel like that's.
And you honestly need both. And so when I say pure form, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I don't feel like I was explaining that really or even kind of getting into that when I keep mentioning the pure form of the human experience. Both of those, exactly what you're saying. Both of those forms exist, and there's nothing you can do about that. You can't do anything about people that are pure evil, and you can't do anything about people that are pure good. Like, both people purely exist. That is what yin and yang is. You need truly both. More people are going to be more good versus more bad. Like you said, your intentions is really where it sets. So it depends on what your intentions are, and that's why I have people dig deep. And I say that from like my own experiences of like, I used to be motivated by darkness, like truly. Like everything that I used to do was like, honestly, up until probably the past 2 years, in my truest opinion, was like, yo, you grew up in foster care, you was abused, like you got this beast inside of you that like you got to make sure that people know and see that you can unleash and things of such nature. But like the moment that I like shifted though from that like type of energy to just more like, you're just here. This is just all part of it. Like all of that needed to happen for you to become the person that you are. All those different things needed to like be set in motion so that you can have this destiny of a person and of a life and of this experience, of this human experience. And so that's so you have to kind of find deep dig within. It's like, why do I want to hold on to this beast in a way to say versus letting it go.
And I know like we had touched on this topic earlier a little bit, where I remember asking you, do you feel like there is more of an external stressor or an internal stressor when it comes to just being stressed in general, or coming with a negative mind or a negative energy? What's really your answer to that?
And it's internal. I think there's a lot of external things that pushes against people, and I think it makes it harder for them to look internal.
Right.
I think that aspect is true, but I think the true stress comes internal. Like I said before, it's like your perspective on something is what changes whether or not you're going to be stressed about it.
Yeah.
And we've had this conversation in the sense of like, if you're talking about money, right? You can be like, you can either be upset about the fact that you don't have money in your account, or you can think about the ways that you can make money. You can think about all the different ways that you can fill that cup versus going, oh shit, my cup's empty.
Right.
It's like, I don't know if I want to live that kind of life.
It's like if you think about it like as an analogy, is like if you're drinking water.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're thirsty, you're just not going to leave your cup empty, are you?
No.
You know what I mean? Like you're going to do everything you can to fill it.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're going to find water no matter what you do. So, yeah. That's a good point.
So that's why I say it's all internal, because yes, there's external things, but that's literally the human experience. Like if you were the only person in the world then everything will go your way. Everything will go great and things like that. But chances are you're probably going to be depressed.
Exactly.
Because you're the only person in the world living this particular experience. So you aren't able to share this experience with anyone else. You're not able, whether that's like they lived and did the same experience, or you're talking like this about a certain experience at the same time. So that's why the human experience is part of the human experience. You need to be able to celebrate the good and the bad at the same time. And I don't know if you ever played Assassin's Creed, but like I talk about Assassin's Creed very hardcore.
Man, who hasn't played?
And the maximum in that is that nothing is true, everything is permitted. And to know that nothing is true is to know that the structure of a society is fragile. And to know that things permitted. And that you must be the sorry, I zoned out on that. Don't look at her.
You are the creator of your reality.
And you're the hurt, and you're the shepherd of your hurt.
Exactly.
And so you have to figure. And so with that, that's the first part. So with that, let's break that down real quick. I knew it. So with that, so we break that down. So you're nothing is true, everything is permitted. To me, nothing is true is to know that the structure of our society is fragile, which I deeply believe in. Like, I truly don't like the structure of our society. Yeah. And I definitely believe there should be changes, but that also starts internally, though. That's the only way that it's going to change. Is that a lot of people don't look within. They look for other validations in whatever form that may come in. But nothing is true. So you must be the shepherd of your own herd, meaning that like you need to protect yourself and your surroundings as well. Right. Your intimate family, your community, your town, your city, your country, etc., etc., etc. You need to, whatever herd that you have, you need to be the shepherd of that particular herd. That's not saying that you're the only shepherd in that herd, and I know that's a little confusing. But that's understanding when you need to be a shepherd and when you need to be a sheep, in a way to say.
I think that ties into like I know I love the saying that like, whatever you water grows. Yeah. So if you put so much energy and you focus so much on the external bullshit, you know what I mean? That's just gonna become internal now.
Well, and like you just stated with the energy, is like a couple things on that. One, consume, and as soon as it starts consuming you. Ayatara.
Shout out
Ayatara. And then number two, like you said, we are just pure vessels. So just like any car that you see, it's not the car, it's the driver. Right? So the car can have all these different functionalities and things like that. Yeah. But if the driver's not good and the driver just does whatever, the car sucks at that point.
Which we know because we lived in St. Louis. Yeah. So a lot of the drivers suck there anyways. But.
So that's the same thing. We are pure vessels. So energy, like you stated earlier, is going to maneuver through you. Whether whether it's positive or negative, whatever you water will grow. So if you're inviting that energy into you, then that's going to become who you become over time, because you're allowing it to become that particular type of energy. And I learned that in grade school because I had a teacher that would be like, I was in a behavioral disorder class, learning disabilities, but I needed the behavior as well. Right. But like there was like a kid that was always in there, always trying to get into fights. And there was one point where he would always be like, oh, they're making me mad. He's making me mad. And the teacher was like, they're not making you mad. You're choosing to be mad. Like you're making the choice now to be mad. And that clicked. I was like, oh fuck. Like you're right.
Yeah. Again going back to just, we are truly the creators of our realities. If I sit here and someone cuts me off in traffic, I have the decision. Exactly. Am I going to create the reality of pulling them out of their car and fighting them, or am I gonna like realize that fuck, this isn't even a big deal, just let them go about their, you know what I mean?
And that brings to the second part of like the maximum is that everything's permitted, meaning that that you take the course of your own actions, whether they're glorious or whether they're whether they're glory or not, like those are your actions, and you must take like fault for those particular actions. Right. And so, like you just stated, if you're in traffic, someone cuts you off, you can either get upset about it, hold on to that, go tell your friends about it, and carry that with you for the rest of the day, or you can let that be a moment in time that has passed.
Exactly.
It's like people, and I used to think about this in grade school as well. It's like people that'll always be like, that'll talk about how they almost got hit by a car. And
right.
I'm like,
almost.
did you get hit?
Right.
Like,
the reality is you didn't.
You didn't.
So you know, it's not
like,
even worth you speaking on it.
Like, and it's not that I'm trying to be a dick, but it's like, I don't know what you want me to do with this information right now.
Exactly. So Bryant, I know like you had touched upon that, you know, speaking on whatever you water grows, you had touched upon a few minutes ago that, you know, you were abused, you went through foster care. I know you shared with me, like, you've really been all over. Was there ever a point in your life where you saw that this reality that you were abused, that you were not loved, that you were not, you know, whatever feelings that you can go through, was there ever a point where you started to realize that that was eating at you, that that was causing you to become, you know, you were letting this reality of all these, you know, bad things truly get into you? Or was there just never, you were just like, you know, this is just my life?
Again, there's kind of two questions in that. First part of it, so there's aspects where, yes, I would when I was at a younger age, a lot of it was that, but that kind of brings me to the second part, where, like, the second part of the question of, like, when you grow up in foster care, you get files. So
you get what?
You get files. So your files follow you wherever you go. So family to family write their notes and things of such nature. So when you grow up in foster care, you don't truly know who you are, because especially when you're at a younger age. Because I went in foster care when I was 2, so I have no idea who I am truly.
Right.
And so the only thing that I know of me is experience that happened to me and what other people told me, and majority of it was what other people were saying about me. So it wasn't until I started going to, like, maybe therapy or counseling and things of such nature, where I can actually either start talking about day-to-day experiences and then push to, like, past experience of, like, this is how I felt, this is how I saw this thing of such nature. And that's why this whole short film aspect too is why I'm excited about it as well, because now I can, because I've read the files a couple times in my lifetimes. I want to say maybe literally 2 times in my lifetimes. I've truly, when I first wrote the book, and then when I found the files later on when I wanted to write a bigger book later on. And at that point I wasn't really quite ready for it too, to be transparent. And so that's where I was kind of saying that's kind of a 2-part question, because there's aspects that I did used to think that way for sure, but that's merely because of the fact that, like, those were just writings of other people.
Right.
And then based on what my experiences that I had and what I took awareness of at that time. Granted, my awareness wasn't quite there at the same time until I got older. Then when I started doing therapy, so something I never, like, truly, like, forgave myself until I was, like, 16 was, like, the death of my younger brother. And that was, like, realistically the reason why we went into foster care. But I didn't, like, forgive myself because my sister kept blaming me for it. And it was technically my fault. Like, in the reality of it, it was my fault. But I was 2 years old and we were left alone.
Yeah.
So, like, it's one of those situations where you kind of go, is not at the same time.
Right.
So but it wasn't until I literally was, I want to say, like, 16, 17, until I fully was like, you're right. It wasn't like, that wasn't something that literally that could have been put on me. And the story behind that is that it was me, my sister, and my sister Lysandra, younger brother Charles, and we were taking a bath together, and I had turned on the hot water. He received burns from the hot water. But it wasn't the burns that, like, killed him. It was because our living conditions were so bad. He died from infections from the towel that he was wrapped in.
Damn.
Right. So it literally took years for my brain to fully process that. Now, let me flip that for a second, though. So kind of going back to your question again, which is, and I told you this before and I've told her, in a kind of a side note, I'm a person that believes in everything and nothing at the same time. And I truly mean that. And I say that because the flip side of that is, how do I not know, too, that maybe my mom was telling me that at the same time, too, to help me process that. She could have just been like, oh, he didn't die from the burns. He just died because, the towel was just dirty and things of such nature. And that's not necessarily how my memory, but of course I was 2.
Yeah.
So there's that back and forth thing. So eventually you have to just kind of go internally, be like, this is true, this is false. And that's why I'm a true believer in everything and nothing at the same time, because of things of that such nature, realistically. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I know.
No, I feel like, dude, just knowing you for so long, and then, I mean, you sharing with me this story, I mean, like, I feel like any other person would base their life off of this story, you know, and just kind of, I don't know, man. You know, it takes a special person to go through all you've been through, especially at such a young age with, you know, foster care in general, but being abused in your homes and you know, everything with your younger brother, and to truly see who you are today and for you to genuinely flip that, dude, that speaks highly to your character, man. You know,
I mean, the highest compliment that people give me is when they see that I work hard on becoming a person. Not so much on like the product, not so much on how much I make, like, because people can compliment my lighting all day.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, all right, thank you. I could have done better.
You know,
like,
shrug the shoulder off, you know, dust it off.
I'm good, but I could have done better here.
Yeah,
I could have done better there. But when people are like, no, you're like this type of person, and it like fits what I literally like I told you earlier. Right. Everyone lives a character. You truly do. You may not try to, and that's not saying that you're fake or anything like that.
Right.
It's what character do you want to live?
Yeah.
And you create that. So that goes back to earlier. It's like answering that question truly, realistically, if that's the true answer in my opinion, is that what character do you want people to truly perceive you as? And live that fucking character. Going back to the whole pure human experience, like, don't fake it. Don't, like, if you're not a dick, then don't be a dick.
Right.
You know? If you're a genuine person, then why are you trying to set yourself in a way where you're hanging out with people that aren't genuine, that aren't, you know, that are trying to lower your vibrations? I mean,
shit, you are a product of what you're around.
Yeah.
You know?
And that is facts. So, like, that's where, again, it's all internal, because you put yourself in any of these positions. Gary Vee says, and I remember the first quote I ever heard from Gary Vee was that you manifest your own stress. And I'm a true believer in that, because you can complain about having a house, but you bought that house. Right. You chose to live in that house.
Shit, at least you have a house, you know?
Right.
Like,
that too. And then you can complain about your kids, and it's like, you have kids.
You have kids,
you chose
you know?
To stick you know?
Exactly.
Like, you chose to make all of these things.
You manifested these realities.
Exactly. So, like, that's what I mean by when I say, like, there are external stress.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not saying that having kids is easy. I'm not saying that it's not stressful to have kids. But I'm also saying that, like, you got to truly understand within yourself that, like, you manifested for these particular things to happen. Anything you do, any decision you make, the car you buy, the shoes you wore, the route you
manifested
walk,
it all.
Anything can happen within those time frame, you know.
Right. Now, I know you shared with me too, and I feel like this was maybe a reason that you wanted to do this short film, was that you had realized that a lot of the foster, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but a lot of the foster homes that you lived in, or was it one maybe or two of them, where you had a lot of negative memories were burned down?
Oh, yeah.
Now, do you feel like that's a karmic event?
Okay, so multiple cases when it comes to, like, house fires at this point for me now.
He said, it's about to get deep.
First instance that I used to have dreams. I used to have dreams about a lot of things, realistically, as a kid, like really, truly troublesome dreams. Yeah.
And you feel like that was a result of just what you've been through?
Yeah. Oh, no, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I told her this, like, I had a dream about, like, growing up, I used to have dreams about, like, the devil chasing me. And it was, like, 4 horsemen, the full 9 yards, like, flames everywhere. To the point, and there were, like, times, and I remember one of the last times I, like, hid in this closet. And I was like, they're not going to find me, and they're not going to find me in here. And then he finds me. And I was like, and as I was going through the process of being caught and then waking up, I was like, you know what? This is going to be the last time this happens. Like, I'm not going to have this happen again. So after that, the second dream I had, it was always like, oh, I'm going head on with this dude. Like, this dream is feeling familiar, and I'm going to go head on with this, like, with this dude. And part of that dream was because, so to even get deeper, like you asked before the interview, is there anything I'm not willing to talk about? I'm not, and I said no. So another thing about me is I used to wet the bed. And I wet the bed well into, like, I want to say until I was 11 or 12-ish.
Which is, like, a pretty common thing among kids in general that have been
kids
abused.
that has trauma, like deep
trauma in general,
trauma,
yeah,
usually.
right.
And a lot of that is held on to, like, anger, frustration, and things of such nature. Anger and frustration. Same with my dreams. So when those dreams, I'm not saying those dreams made me wet the bed, because I had other dreams and I was still, like, I can have a good dream and I was still wet the bed. But it wasn't until I started letting go of anger, letting go of frustrations and things of such nature, when that literally stopped. Like, I stopped peeing in bed. Like, I can literally have a full glass of water before I go to bed, not a single drop. You know? Like, and yes, because I'm an adult now, but like at the same time,
shit, I wouldn't judge you if you still pissed the bed.
But there are people that, like, until they're 18 that, like, will still wet the bed, and it's just due to so much, like, frustration. And I know, like, and I've shared stories with someone that, like, they peed until they literally, like, until they went to college, because their home environment was just that stressful.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, when that connectivity started, like, connecting, I was like, oh, shit, okay, that makes sense. So between the dreams and between that, there was that aspect of it. So going back to your fire question. So I only mention that in a sense because I used to have this dream that a house caught on fire. And I was like, I had this childhood dream that just caught on fire, or had this childhood home that caught fire. And I always had that vivid memory. And it wasn't until years later, after I got adopted, that I, visit some biological family members, and they were like, yeah, we had a house. It caught fire. And, most of, like, your memories, most of, like, your photos, there was, like, they had a few photos, but most of them, pretty much all burned with it and things of such nature. But then we fast forward in time, and as I started on this short film project now, we stopped by one of the first homes that I stayed in. And I was trying to find it, and I knew exactly, like, we drove up and down. I was like, no, that's the police department, that's the apartments. And, like, I was like, I know this is the street because I could see the police department from the house that we lived in. And so, but it was all covered in trees. And I was like, this can't be right.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And I mainly thought that because my brother was adopted by that family. I have a younger brother, Dre, and he was adopted by that family. And he lived in that house until they moved down to Mississippi. So I sent him a text. I was like, hey, like, what's the address? And she's like, yeah, we're in the right spot. And so it was covered in trees, and it caught fire a couple of years ago. And I was like, damn. That is crazy. And a lot of those houses back there too, that even, like, any memories that I have of it, like, just overrun with just trees and some of them just gone, like, buildings are gone and things like that.
Do you feel like that helped you in, like,
oh, for sure,
in a way, kind of, like, I guess, process what you've been through, or just just going back and realizing, like, I guess metaphorically, like, not that these memories don't exist, but that they're, like, no pun intended, but, like, burnt down, like.
Second one for sure, if I have to simplify it, because I didn't feel like any certain type of way. It was just like, damn, I was like, literally all gone. So any memory that, like, I would have at that point, it goes back to, like, you're making yourself mad type situation. You could keep replaying these memories and these different situations and things of such nature, but they literally no longer exist. That reality no longer exists.
Right.
And we had a conversation in, like, the early phases of dating. I used to live in Iceland. And I lived in Keflavik, which is the military, that used to be a military base. As of this year, I found that out. They shut down. And, like, I moved out of there in 2003, I want to say, is when I moved back to the States. In 2006, it was shut down.
A little bit to learn more about him.
Damn. So it's not in existence
the base doesn't
at all.
exist. So because that was one of the deepest part of my memory too. Like the
In
lowest
Iceland
point was in Iceland.
Okay.
I became anorexic because I stopped eating.
Damn.
I stopped talking to the family. I was in my room all the time.
Yeah.
I started going to church a little bit more, and then I stopped when I came to my family, and then I went back. That's a whole nother part of the conversation. But yeah, like that was literally, I would say honestly, the top 3 lowest points in my entire life. So with that combined to like this other house being like gone, then I did deeper research and I was like, hey, there's another house. There's a house in Mount Vernon. I want to see if that's. I at least knew the address of that. I could kind of figure out where it was. And so I started kind of trying to find it. I found the school that I went to, but I couldn't quite find the house. I was like, I left a hint for myself, and I left a hint in the book of the address because I can remember the address. It was 1212. And so then I was like, oh, 1212, and I thought it was 1212 South 13th Street because I thought I lived in 13 homes. I only lived in 12 homes, including the home that I live in now, or the family I have now. But I lived in 12 home, and the address is 1212 South 12th Street. So 1212, angel numbers right there.
I was gonna say that like a minute ago, but
angels numbers for sure. Because like on a couple different, on a side note on this real quick, a couple things is like that was my first full like spiritual interaction. That's when I got baptized. Was at that house. That particular mother was like super religious as well. Yeah. But another low point as well. Like it was just a really weird low point, not the lowest, but it was like a really weird low point too. And that was the family right before I moved to Iceland too, or not before I moved to Iceland, but before I moved to Scott, which then we eventually moved to Iceland. So 12, I was like, oh damn, like that's super crazy that like this happened. Guess what happened to that house? It burned down.
Burned down as well?
It burned down as well. So this journey is going to be interesting because I'm curious to see what other houses burned down. And there's also aspects where like yes, there can be a spiritual thought behind it as well of me like cleansing things of such nature, because like even in that house where the fire took place was in the spot where her room was. Okay, damn. So I'm like, damn. Like, am I doing deep. All of this? Or like, what's up with this now? But then there's also other aspects of like curiosity about like the landlords and stuff like that may have owned the properties, and because a lot of times like people that like go into foster care, they tend to do it for the money aspect of it. Each kid you get money, you get funding from the state,
and that pays out pretty well.
It pays, I want to say about $2,000-ish, I think, a month or something like that. And that's supposed to go towards like clothing, food,
which it probably never goes.
And it never does. That's why I'm also grateful for my family, because they saved their money, and that's how I was able to. I don't think it was $2,000. It may have been like $1,000 or something like that. But they used some of that money to help me pay for like my first car that I ever got.
Damn. Okay.
Right.
That's real. Yeah.
Oh no, very real. They used their like insurance, their money, and things like that. And that was a whole nother deeper conversation that I had with myself as well. Is that like I understand that these people were probably in low positions, but that's not something you should do to a child to put them in that particular position. Not at all. But yeah, I think there's definitely coincidence, or not coincidence. I don't know which way I want to use that. But I think there are definitely connections between my spiritual healing and these places burning down and overgrowing. Just as much as I want to look deeper into like really showing people like what this life was, not just for me, but some of these children. And I'm also to learn to see what new things have changed now that like. Because that's the other thing I'm kind of learning too throughout this process. Because all of my memories, all of my experience, is just literally pure memories. But, so I want to see what things have changed at the same time. I want to see if maybe new tactics have been implemented as far as like making sure kids are getting put in proper homes, or that they're getting proper help and things of such nature as well.
Damn. So yeah. Now, Brian, before we wrap it up, I have one last question. I kind of want to end this on a more we've been pretty reflective here. I think I appreciate your time.
Of course.
But
appreciate your time.
Thank you. If you could go back and tell your 16-year-old self, 16,
okay,
any piece of advice from 27-year-old Bryant, what would that be? One piece of advice.
I feel like I already gave myself that advice. And I say that when I am kind of like thinking about it now. Because 16 was like another low point in my life as well. That's when my parents got separated. It was like 16, 17.
Right.
So I started going back to church again at that point. And I think that's where like I started really like driving into spirituality at that point. Like I was just constant meditating, constant going to church. I was like, to the point where I'll have dreams and I'll have voices in my head while I'm sleeping, and
Damn.
I'll go to church and they'll be like literally exactly what I needed to hear for that particular thing. And it's not saying because I believe in a God in a Christianity sense,
right,
but in a sense that I truly believe in a higher energy, and that's within truly. And I didn't truly learn that until I got older. So I would say I feel like I did start to give myself that advice already, was to like start drilling into like doing some deep shadow
spirituality
and that spirituality form of stuff. To the point now where I feel like I'm literally just a spiritual being, and that's just literally, I thought about it recently, is that I think I come back to the human experience because I truly enjoy the human experience.
Yeah.
And I want to help people to like truly understand the human experience and what it should truly teach you as well. But yeah, I think that was realistically that I would have done. If I could think of like a true advice, stop caring what other people think.
It's a good one.
Like now, like not tomorrow. Because I think it took me until I got to like maybe after senior year of high school until like fresh year of college until that fully started kind of implementing it and then fully kick in. Until,
because I feel like a lot of people say that, but they don't truly implement it. I feel like that's two different things.
And so I would say if there's anything that I can truly give myself, I would say that just stop giving a fuck what other people truly like think about you. Like it literally doesn't matter.
True.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, like I said, man, I think it's great to hear your story and to see, who you've became out of it. And I'm very excited, as I hope you guys are very excited to see this short film, and I think it's awesome. I think your why is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Why you're doing it. So, quick round of applause for Bryant Powell.
Oh, thank you.
And again, this is Coffee Talks with Cody James. Woo! We'll see y'all later. Good vibes, good vibrations. Love y'all. Doses.